Wow, here we are for our big experiment, and I'm so excited that you are here with me. I'll introduce you in a minute. A little housekeeping. I'm Beth Granger. I'm a trainer, consultant, and speaker on the topic of unleashing the power of LinkedIn, and I see we have some friends already joining us. Those of you, some of you may know, some of you may not. What we're experimenting with today is I'm going to be introducing my guest and interviewing my guest and having a conversation. And then we're going to switch over to a LinkedIn audio event, which I am beta testing for a Q&A. Will it work? Who knows? But let's try it. So I see we have Gabe and we have Brittany and Michael and Nigel and Tristan and Sarah. Thank you for being here. I'm also, because I like to experiment and make things more complex, sending this to YouTube and Facebook.
Yes.
Because why not?
Let's do it.
So, Robert, I'm going to introduce him. Robert is, I love what you say in your LinkedIn headline, actually. You say, I help leaders deliver critical messages with confidence. To me, that's such a nice distillation of what you do. And something you told me that I thought was really interesting was that most interpersonal problems that we face can be traced back to one thing, communication. And that's so true. So welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Beth, it is phenomenal to join you. I have seen all the amazing things that you've been doing, and I feel blessed and honored and privileged to be on your stage. Thank you.
Thank you. I have so many questions for you and directions that we can go. And people who are joining us live or after the fact, if you have any questions, yes, you can type them in here. And then, of course, ask them later on in audio. Ellen, welcome. Clarine, welcome. I see some other beta testers in the room. We're all having fun with this. So one of the things I was thinking about is, yes, communication is so important. And especially within organizations, there can be misunderstandings. There can so many things where you want to get people on the same page. Do you think it's more difficult during the past 2 years where everything is remote for people to communicate effectively?
You know what? Before we get to the answer for that, there's something that I normally do. I normally bring like theme music when I come in. And I totally forgot to do it. Hold on one second.
Here we go. Theme music.
Come on, Beth.
I love it.
Yeah. Hey, we try to make a little noise and bring some energy into the room.
I love it.
Yeah. Awesome. So you got to repeat the question. I was like totally freaking out about my music. Okay.
And I know the last audio room I did, I wanted to do music in the beginning at the end, and I forgot.
Yeah.
You know, it happens. It happens. It's live. That's part of the fun. So what I was thinking about is, you know, the importance and power of communication. And do you think during the past 2 years when we've forgotten how to have conversations in some ways, or at least in person, and all the stuff that's been going on, do you think, well, obviously communication is even more important, but have you made any observations about things that people need to do more of or less of during this crazy time?
You know what? I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is a lot of people are blaming the pandemic for communication challenges, when the truth is what it did was expose a lot of the stuff that we took for granted beforehand, right? It's like you're in a room dancing and all of a sudden you hear cracks, and then you look down and the entire floor is cracked, and it's always been cracked. You just never look down.
Yes.
Right. And so one of the, especially where meetings are concerned, what's happened, we use the term Zoom fatigue, which I'm not diminishing because it's a thing. And what's happened is we have these meetings and people have their cameras off and people are doing all these different things. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's because we're in a pandemic. It's because we're in a Zoom meeting. No, not necessarily. Because difference is that sometimes people, when they're in person, they couldn't put a bag over their head, or they couldn't just like, you know, say, I'm no longer paying attention, let me close my eyes. They couldn't do that because they were in person. So we now need to recognize the intentionality of communication. How do I connect? How do I engage? How do I show up as compelling, clear, and concise so that people
Mm,
can get the message that you want and then move to action based on that. So that's the biggest thing that I've seen.
I love that, the idea of intentionality, and that's in so many things beyond
Yeah.
communication. I know I'm part of a networking organization, and we talk about what is our intention for the meeting.
Hmm.
It's not just a random meeting. You have a purpose and goals together.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Now, I know I may be jumping all over the place, but that's okay.
I'll
It's
jump with you. Let's
conversation.
roll.
I know part of the whole thing that you do with individuals and organizations is work with leaders
Hmm.
to help them with their confidence. Why is that important?
Well, if we watch Titanic, right, or any movie where there's a ship or a plane or anything that is happening, when everything is smooth, everybody says, "Yay, okay, we have parties, we dance." When there is a challenge, everybody now begins to either look for, "Wait a minute, who's steering this thing? Where are we going?" Or who's going to tell us or help us to get out of this challenge or this trouble that we're in. And that comes down to leadership. So leadership doesn't necessarily mean that I'm out front, I'm speaking the loudest, I'm telling everybody what to do. But there is this strategic piece of it. There's this thing that says when the chips are down or when it's hard, I've got to have a different mentality. I've got to have optimism. I've got to be able to inspire hope in people. And if any organization does not have that, if any organization is absent of that, you've got a dying organization
Mm.
or a zombie organization that is, it's already dead and just trying to feed off of the entrails of living people, living organizations, right, or whatever. That's kind of a disgusting example, but okay, all
I think it applies these days. It works for me. It
yeah,
works.
yeah,
I know that before I started my own business, I worked in corporate,
hmm,
and I remember things would happen or decisions would be made,
yeah,
and we would get frustrated. And if only we had been told why,
yeah,
if somebody had said, "Look, this is where the business is going. This is what we need," we would have been on board.
right,
But the communication didn't happen.
yeah, yeah,
Crazy. Now, I thought it was interesting that you said that the person who's the leader doesn't have to be the loudest necessarily in the room.
yes.
What what do they have to do to be to both to have that confidence
Hmm.
and to be trusted, respected, all those kinds of things that they need to have happen?
Ooh, I love that you use the word trust because that is one of the most essential traits of a leader. A leader must be trusted, right? If a leader is not trusted, then some of the words that you just talked about, frustration, lack of loyalty, only doing enough or only what's written on the paper, what's in the job description, those are the behaviors that you see. So how does a leader gain trust? Several ways. A leader gains trust through consistency, showing up
Mm.
consistently. A leader gains trust through being with people and connecting with them, understanding who they are, where they are, what drives them, what challenges they're having. One of the biggest ways that a leader gains trust is through what I teach. And this is the heart of storytelling. Storytelling is what I teach. And one of the ways that you gain trust is by sharing your story. What are the
Mm.
challenges that you've experienced? What are the things that you've had to navigate? And where have you failed and had to make a comeback from something, right? Because
Wow.
when we share with people our failures, when we share with them our mess ups, when we're vulnerable with them, Brene Brown speaks about this a whole lot. When we're vulnerable, what happens is that people say, "Oh my gosh, okay, you're not perfect. You have an understanding of what it means to feel this way." Right? And when people can understand that their leaders feel not for them, but feel with them, that's another
Mm.
part of the word empathy, right? When leaders can feel with them, then that's how you begin to build trust over time.
I love that because I think you know, throughout my career, looking at people who led organizations or departments or whatever it was,
Yeah.
clubs, anything, I think it used to seem like the person couldn't share their failures. Like they had to be, oh, I've never failed. I'm perfect.
Right.
And I love that you're saying that be you and share that bit of yourself. And I think that's happening more and more just in the world,
Hmm.
on social media, everywhere.
Yeah.
People are feeling comfortable doing that, but maybe it's just the people I know.
Maybe. I mean, you're probably one of those, Jim Rohn talks about we're the average of the 5 people closest to us. So you probably have a lot of that in your space, and that's cool. And that's okay. And I think the benefit and the disadvantage of that for our time, though, is because vulnerability is a thing in some ways. Some people try to leverage that. And we have fake failures
Yes.
online as a way
Yes.
to create drama or create fake or faux trust with people online. And so, we've gotta use some wisdom and discernment in that space. But I think people overall are pretty smart. As human beings, we're fairly smart, and over time we see through certain things. So
Yes.
yeah.
Sometimes it does take time.
Yeah.
Somebody asks if you can, I think, Ellen, did you want Robert to restate the 3 C's? What was the 3 C's? What was that?
Oh, I think when we were talking about how to show up, when you communicate, how to show up as clear, compelling, and concise.
They liked that.
Somebody did. I'm glad somebody liked something I said.
Well, I like alliteration, so I like it too. So Ellen, hopefully
Yeah.
that was what you were asking him to restate. And we have people talking in the chat part of this, which I love.
Yeah.
And later on, we'll get to hear your voices. In case you're just tuning in, we're talking about communication, confidence, and now another thing, questions. So you wrote an article recently, or maybe it was a newsletter.
Yeah.
And it was called, I wrote it down, How to Use Questions to Outline Your Presentation or Conversation.
Love it.
I want to know more about this, and I think the people who are joining us do too. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, so I'll give an example. I was living in the state of Massachusetts, and I was sitting in my living room, and the doorbell rang. I went to the door, and I looked out the window, and there was this guy in my driveway with a display board. And on the display board, they had these little squares. Didn't really know what they were, couldn't really tell from my vantage point. But I opened the door and I went outside. He said, "Hey, my name's Mark, and I've been walking around your neighborhood, and I'm selling carpet. I've got all these different types of carpet. I've got Berber, I've got Austin Power Shag, I've got High Pile, come on over and touch the carpet." So I went over and I'm touching these little squares and touching them. I touch about 3 or 4 of them. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And he says, "Hey, do you want carpet?" And I open my door and I show him my entire house is hardwood. Right? So he sees the hardwood and he says, "Oh, okay. Oh, thanks for your time." And he leaves. Now, he came at me with the solution. He came at me with the product, but he had no idea about what I needed. And he could have figured that out a little bit by asking some questions at the beginning. So what could he have asked? He could have asked me, he could have said, "Hey, you know what? My name's Mark. I've been going around the neighborhood and I've been speaking with your neighbors about a couple of things. Are you having a problem with your heating bill? Or how do you feel about your heat? I notice you have your heat. I notice you've got an oil tank out here. How are you feeling about the heat?" I would have been like, "Man, I am so upset with this oil company right now. My heating bill is astronomical and I want to get rid of it and I want to throw this oil tank at somebody." Right? And if I'd have said that, then he'd have nodded. Yeah, I know. I've been speaking with your neighbors and everybody seems to be pretty dissatisfied with the oil. Would you like to save some money on the heat? Yeah, of course I do. So what if I could tell you about something that would change your heating bill? Would you be interested in listening? Yeah, let's talk about it. Right? So he's asked me 3 questions and he's kind of walked me through a process. Right. He's spoken about a challenge that I have, which is heating. It's not, carpet is not my challenge. Okay. Whether my floor is soft and smushy or smooth is not my challenge.
Right.
My challenge is I freaking hate what I'm paying for the heating bill, right? So he's spoken about my challenge, and then what he did next was okay, yeah, I've been speaking with people in your neighborhood. Ooh, my neighbors, characters, people that I know, people that have some credibility, some cachet, some trust with me, right? And now he's spoken to my neighbors, and he also builds some context, as in, yeah, I've been in your neighborhood, I've done this, I've walked up and down the street. So storytelling, right, is really
Yes.
about four things: context, characters, conflict, and conclusion.
Oh, say that again.
Right? Storytelling is about four things: characters, or context, characters, conflict, and conclusion. Right?
I love it.
And when you start out with conclusion, when you start out with the product, you really don't gain an understanding of the audience.
It's beautiful. And for everybody who's joining us, you probably noticed that Robert did one of these things. He told a story. When I asked him a question, he told us a story. And
Yeah.
that made us able to really visualize it in a way that you just saying a response
Right.
would not have. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, we have a question. All right. Gabe asks, here, let's put it up on screen. Am I putting in the wrong one up? Where'd it go? Gabe asks, what can help you define a clear and concise approach to asking good questions?
What can help you define a clear and concise approach to asking good questions? Well, I think, I don't remember who said it, but the quote that I want to share is, in order to be interesting, you must first be interested. Right? And so what is it about your audience that you need to know? And what is it that they need? What is it that they want? How can you create connection by figuring out where they are, what's driving them, what's challenging them right now? So with regard to good questions, you want to allow your audience to talk as much as possible. And so you want to stay away from questions that cut the conversation short, unless you want a short conversation.
Right.
Right?
Not a yes and no conversation.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. So, is this true or false? It's true. Okay. Conversation's over. Did you do this? Yes. Conversation's done. Right. So if I want a little bit more, I've got to ask, how do you feel about, what happened when, I've got to ask questions that inspire or elicit greater responses. And as I get those responses, I'm now data collecting, right? I'm now doing research. I'm now market researching, and I'm collecting information that allows me to then say, aha, this is who you are. This is how you feel. This is what's going on in your world. And here's how I can help solve your problem.
I loved in your article how you said the experience many of us have had as parents, where you pick up your kid from school and you say, was your day good?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Or whatever. It was something like that. So
Yep.
Too funny. Yeah. I mean, I think this is true for so much. It's don't they say we have two ears and one mouth for a reason? And
yeah.
So anything else you want to add about asking good questions before I maybe change directions, or anything people should know?
No.
Okay.
Our conversation's over. No.
That was a yes or no, right? Yeah.
I'm using it against you right now, Beth.
I know. So here's a question: is if you're having an important meeting, whether you're a leader or not, you're at a meeting and you have an objective to meet, and it may be a conversation type meeting, or it may be a presentation you're giving. How can you guarantee that influence that you want to get people to understand and agree with what you're presenting, or be part of the same team?
Yeah. Well, so we're asking about influence, and influence isn't this automatic thing. Dale Carnegie had this great book. A lot of us have read it, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So one of the things that he did, or that he said in the book, Beth, is to influence people or to get people on your side, you use a specific technique. You call their name, right? He said in that book, one of the sweetest sounds to any person in any language is the sound of their own name. And when people hear their name, what happens? They perk up, because it's kind of like their identity. It's their identifier. And you call their name, they feel like, wait a minute, Beth knows me. Oh, she knows my name. She knows my name. Okay. All right. So that's one technique you can use. However, I'm not an NLP expert. And so there are other people that can answer that influence and persuasion question better. What I would say is, if you have the opportunity prior to the meeting, create connection with the decision makers or the people that you want to hear a response from, and you start asking them some questions before the meeting. Yeah, listen, I know we're heading into this meeting. What would be a great outcome from this session for you? What would make you say, OMG, I'm so glad I attended this session today?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know a lot of, we're both speakers. I know a lot of speakers like to get to their event ahead of time and have a chance to interact with their audience. It's the same thing.
Yep, it is. It is. And, maybe you don't have a chance to meet them in person, but if you know that there's an exec that's going to be your decision maker, that's going to be at the meeting, think about a quick 2-line email that you can send that morning that is concise, that doesn't take them too long to digest, and that can get them thinking, so that when you get to the meeting, it's, oh, hey, I'm Robert. I sent you an email about half an hour ago. Just wanted to know if you had a chance to read it. If not, here is a recap of it really quickly. Just to create connection is ultimately what you want. Somebody said in the comments that I like C's. Yeah, I do.
Me too. Actually, I have a list of, I think it's in my Clubhouse, which I'm never there anymore, but Clubhouse bio. I think I said something I like. I forget all the C's, but it was connection, conversation, curiosity, contribution. I don't know, a bunch of them.
Let me tell you a quick joke about C's. It's a really bad joke. When I was in high school, my dad came to speak in the auditorium one day, and my friends teased me about this forever. He said, as you're getting grades, make sure that you get only A's, because the C's are for swimmers. Okay, all right. Yeah, my friends always bother me about that after. Yeah.
And we do have a question. I'm not sure if you've been involved in it at all, but I think the concept works for anything. Rose asks, when you're starting out on social audio, what are the 3 best ways to establish credibility? So Rose, I'm going to add something first. To me, it's not social audio doesn't matter. It's no matter how you're having a communication with somebody. Do you agree? And what do you think about that?
One of the best ways is really your energy, because a lot of times you hear people on social, I'll say it's social audio, right? Or you hear people, and even in person, you see them and you don't create connection with them because, quite frankly, they're boring. Right? I'll say it out loud, right? They're boring. Their energy isn't attractive to you, and when I say boring, when I say energy, I'm not talking about they have to be doing cartwheels and flips. They don't have to do, it's not a clown show. They don't have to do all of that, but there is an energy that people are attracted to. And that energy, you can literally hear when somebody's smiling. Right? Yeah. Even if you don't see their face, you can hear when they're smiling. And a lot of people are not intentional about the energy that they bring to presentation or to communication. And so
I love that.
You've got, if you think you're being energetic, turn the volume up another 50% on that. Yeah. In person, you can get away with it because your body adds some stuff to it. But when you're on social, be it video or audio, turn up the volume on your energy at least another 50%, because that's, some of it is sucked away over the airwaves or something. I don't know what happens, but yeah.
I love that. In fact, I was listening to an audio room this morning, and somebody said something about she wanted people to hear her smile. So yes, that exactly.
Absolutely.
Rose, good question. Thank you. And we'll take more questions in about 5 minutes. Why don't I tell people what we're planning to do? So
Let's do
the
it.
way an audio event works is you have to join it. It's separate from this. You'll leave the live, and I will share the link on the screen. I will try to put it in the chat, or maybe somebody can see it and type it in the chat for me. That would be great if you could do that. And I've tried to make it easy by making it a shorter URL. And it may take Robert and I a minute or two to get over there. But if you're there first, it puts you in a little bit of a waiting room, apparently. So that will be good. You can join from desktop or mobile. If you're joining from mobile, you do want to have the most recent app. And again, it's in beta. It's a week old. We don't know what'll happen. Will there be glitches? Maybe. We'll figure it out together. So I'm really excited about that. But we do have a couple minutes more.
Yeah.
So I know you have a podcast.
I do.
What's it called?
It is called the What's My Story podcast. Subtitle, How I Got From There to Here.
Oh, I like it. And I'm typing that so I remember.
Excellent.
And so the question is, do you think, other than being a guest with me, when you get access to LinkedIn Audio, do you think you'll want to play with it? And what might you do with it?
I know I'm going to play with it. I'm going to be using it to interview executives who are prospects in organizations that I want to speak for. I'm going to be using it to share stories of other speakers or people who have navigated the spaces that I have. I'm going to be using it as I'm learning new things, and I'll invite other experts who know that stuff already to share with my audience and possibly their audiences too, how they're doing certain things. So I think I really want to be, what I encourage people to be is, you don't have to be the expert, but you can be a curator of expertise.
I love it. I love it. And that's actually what I did with LinkedIn Live.
Mm-hmm.
So I got access to it, over 2 years ago, I think. So
Wow.
a long time ago. And for the first year and a half, I brought on guests every week because to have interesting conversations. But the idea was to introduce them to my network through these conversations. And it's so much fun. Yeah. And somebody just said that a friend of mine, Andy Foote, gave the audio part of this a shout out on Clubhouse. So people are going to come over here or there. Or it's part of the fun these days. People are just really sharing people's LinkedIn lives and the audio experiments that people are doing. Yeah. So I would say, I think we should tell us one more thing. Maybe why is it important to identify a signature talk or signature story? I noticed in talking with me, you've shared a lot of stories. So why is that important?
Well, I've shared with you stories, especially when you're starting out, though. It can be challenging to be able to pull from a vault of stories pretty quickly. And so it's important to have a signature talk or signature story because it does a couple of things. It establishes and it creates a connection with you. And some people wonder, my goodness, why would I want to tell the same story over and over? Well, why do people go watch Star Wars over and over? Well, you know, they've created a connection with it. They love it. They love hearing the same story. And, you know, I can't tell you how many times my kids as babies or as young kids, they said, Daddy, tell me this story. Tell me this specific story. They've heard it and they want to hear it again because
Good Night Moon.
Exactly. It reestablishes in their mind. And it reminds them of a connection. It reminds them of an emotion. It reminds them of something. So there's a comfort and a connection that they feel to that story. So establishing a signature story allows you to do that with your audiences, and you become known as Beth, the LinkedIn story guru. Robert, the guy who talks about riding his bike down the hill. And that's a story that I tell. So, yeah.
Well, maybe you'll tell it over on audio.
Yeah, I can do that.
People are already in the waiting room on audio. This is so exciting. So what we're going to do is we're going to click end broadcast, and then we're going to go to the other. You have that link. I put it in on the screen, a shorter link to get there.
I got the join button. How about that?
The join button. Yeah, I have it up on another tab. That's why I'm doing it from desktop, much easier. So everyone, join us over on audio and we'll continue the conversation. Bye-bye. Or see you soon.
See you soon.